In a very humble apartment, Janiyah lives with her ill daughter Arya. After a trip to the hospital, Arya has to sleep with headphones on because the neighbors' music can be heard through the thin walls. They wake up early and Janiyah bathes Arya while reminding her not to play with her science project since they don't have the money to fix it if it breaks. Arya reminds her mom that the teacher has been asking for her lunch money and Janiyah gets frustrated when she learns that the teacher shamed her daughter in front of the whole class. On their way out, Janiyah gives some coins to Benny, a man in a wheelchair. Her landlady sees this and yells at her because she hasn't paid rent yet. The landlady reminds her she's already filed the eviction, so Janiyah tells her she'll bring the money during her lunch break after she gets paid at work. In return, Janiyah asks her to tell the neighbors to keep the music down, but the landlady refuses, saying they have the right because they do pay rent. When Janiyah drops Arya at school, she promises to bring her the lunch money during her break. She says hello to the principal, who watches her in shock and confusion. Then Janiyah goes to her job at the grocery store, which is already full of people. Her boss Richard doesn't even say hi and rushes her to work because one of the cashiers called out sick. Both Richard and the customers insult her just because she walks at a normal speed to her spot. A woman tries to pay all her groceries with a benefits card and Janiyah explains that some of those items are non-eligible. The client gets angry and leaves without buying anything, so her husband throws a bottle at Janiyah on their way out. Richard complains about the mess and orders Janiyah to clean it quickly before someone slips. The other customers also complain because they have to wait more. While Janiyah goes looking for the cleaning things, her coworker notices how much she's suffering and tries to lend her some money. However, Janiyah turns it down because she knows her friend needs it too and they're getting paid today anyway. At that moment Janiyah gets a call from the school because Arya didn't bring the lunch money and has a suspicion wound. Janiyah tells them she fell in the tub but the teachers are still wary. Richard finds Janiyah on the phone and forces her to hang up, so Janiyah begs until he agrees to give her a 30-minute break so she can rush to the school to fix the issue. She also asks him for her paycheck, but he refuses. Then Janiyah stops at the bank to get her last $47 for Arya's lunch but the ATM says insufficient funds even though she has some money in her account. Manager Nicole explains that the ATMs won't give her money if it leaves the account with less than the minimum needed to keep it open. Janiyah chooses to close it but to do so she has to wait in a very long line, so she leaves with nothing. Afterward Janiyah gets to the school and screams when she sees her daughter being taken away by Child Protective Services. She begs for mercy and explains that Arya is sick so she needs special medicine, but she's ignored. Janiyah goes on a rant, explaining how she works 2 jobs as she has a breakdown and hears a screeching sound in her ears as if her reality was crumbling. After taking Arya's fallen bag, Janiyah rushes back to work in the rain. She's in such a hurry that she accidentally cuts off Oliver and almost crashes. Oliver yells at her and throws a drink at her car. Janiyah just keeps moving, but Oliver says he'll make her regret it and starts following her. Suddenly he hits her car with his, causing it to slip on the water. Janiyah stops the vehicle before anything happens, but then she can't make it start again. When she gets out of the car to check the engine, she's approached by a police officer, so she tells her about the guy chasing her. However, Oliver turns out to be a cop too, so he threatens Janiyah with finding a way to legally blow her brains out. After the cop sends Oliver away, she asks Janiyah for her documents, which have expired. Janiyah desperately explains she will renew them today after getting paid, but the cop still impounds her car. Janiyah has no choice but to walk back. Richard immediately yells at her because she's wet and took 2 hours instead of 30 minutes, so he ends up firing her. When Janiyah asks for her paycheck, Richard spitefully tells her that fired employees get their checks through the mail and refuses to give it to her even when she points out it's right there on his desk. Then Janiyah goes home and finds all her things getting wet on the street because her landlady has evicted her. Janiyah can only scream in frustration while she tries to pick up her belongings. Minutes later she's back at the store to tell Richard she isn't leaving without the check. At that moment a man enters the office and asks her about a product while using her name because he reads it on her name tag. Suddenly he takes out a gun as a second robber appears and they make Robert give them all the money from the safe. They want Janiyah's bag to hide the money in but she fights back because it is Arya's medicine. After lots of struggle, Janiyah manages to get the guy's gun and shoots him, so the other robber runs away. Robert yells at her and accuses her of setting this up because the robber knew her name, so he calls the police. With her mind stuck in a dizzy blur, Janiyah keeps enduring all of Robert's yelling until she snaps and shoots him too. Afterward Janiyah grabs her check and rushes to the bank to cash it. The security guard tells her they're closed, but Nicole takes pity on her and lets her come in. Unfortunately the teller asks for an ID and Janiyah doesn't have hers because the cop took all her documents with the car. She explains her situation yet the employee refuses to help her, so Janiyah snaps again and reveals she still has the gun. The teller presses the emergency button and soon Nicole gets a call from the authorities. She describes Janiyah for them and tells them that she has a bomb because she's mistaken Arya's art project for one. Meanwhile detectives Raymond and Grimes are looking at the crime scene in the store and Janiyah's actions are clearly seen on the security recordings. When they interrogate the workers, Janiyah's friend defends her and tries to explain that she would never do something like this. However she's so upset about her friend getting into trouble that Grimes thinks she's hiding something. Raymond thinks there's more to the story and sends him to gather more clues. Next, the detectives interrogate Janiyah's landlady while looking through her things on the street. They find Aria's medicine and Benny explains the girl was sick. He also speaks highly of Janiyah. The detectives want to search the apartment, but the landlady doesn't let them. At that moment they receive a call telling them about the bank, so they take off. At the bank, the tellers are giving Janiyah all their money because they think they're getting robbed, so she tries to explain that she only wants her check cashed. Nicole gives her phone to the guard so he can get instructions, then she tries to tell the other clients to leave. However, they don't understand what's going and stay. Janiyah calls Nicole for help and Nicole manages to explain to the teller that she should only give her the check money. Janiyah is losing her mind more and more every second and rants in frustration, but making the others scared because they think she's about to get violent. At that moment the cops surround the building. Grimes tells the chief that Janiyah set up the robbery at the store, but Raymond thinks she only had a bad mental reaction to the situation. Inside, a client finally notices Janiyah's gun and tries to tackle her, causing Janiyah to accidentally shoot in the air. Both the client and the guard panic and run out of the building and the cops surround them. The client explains that the gun only went off by accident and complains because the guard didn't do anything. The tellers are crying and hiding, so Janiyah yells at them as she rants, saying that she only wants her daughter's lunch money. She freezes when she realizes that the reporter on TV is talking about her, saying that she's robbing the bank and murdered her boss. The chief calls the bank, but when Janiyah hears that it's the police, she hangs up. Then the negotiator arrives with a special truck, but Raymond convinces the chief that Janiyah will be more open to talking to another woman, and she has experience with negotiating too. Raymond calls the bank again and makes Nicole put her on speaker. She asks about the gunshot and Janiyah panics as she explains it was an accident. She keeps screaming as she continues to lose her mind, but Grimes understands that she isn't trying to rob the bank and talks calmly, showing sympathy and calling the incident a misunderstanding. However, when Raymond asks her to come out and promises to help, Janiyah loses it again. She says they just want to put her away like they put away their daughter and nobody ever helps her. When Nicole tells her to let the clients out, Janiyah screams that she isn't keeping them and hangs up again. Afterward, Nicole gives Janiyah her check money. Janiyah separates the $40 needed for school lunch and asks Nicole to take them to Aria because she knows the police won't let her. When she sees the cops getting in position on TV, she makes the tellers close the blinds on the front door. The cops in the truck have access to the security cameras and worry about the bomb. One of the tellers then secretly begins streaming the situation. When an elderly client says she needs to sit down, Janiyah immediately makes Nicole bring her a chair. The other clients ask her to let them out, but Janiyah is convinced that once she's alone the police will shoot her. Two of the clients run out anyway, so Janiyah makes Nicole lock the door. At that moment Aria's science project starts beeping, so Nicole and the police think it's over, but Janiyah just turns it off. Saying she needs to think, Janiyah goes to one of the offices. The tellers want to use the chance to leave, but Nicole tells them not to move because they don't know how Janiyah will react. She comes back with chairs for everyone, explaining she knows what it's like to be standing all day. Raymond sees this and tells the chief that real criminals aren't this nice. A cop enters the truck saying that they've acquired the blueprints of the bank, so he wants to go in with flash grenades. However, the chief doesn't want to risk it because of the bomb. Some cops think they should call the FBI, but Raymond thinks that's ridiculously overreacting. Obviously this is just a desperate woman and she hasn't even hurt anyone, so Raymond wants to give her a chance while the FBI will probably just shoot her on the spot. The chief agrees and makes Raymond call the bank again. Janiyah hates the sound of the phones ringing and wants to turn them off, but Nicole convinces her that the police may help her get to her daughter. As soon as Janiyah picks up, she starts explaining the whole situation and Raymond finally understands why she thinks they won't help her. Janiyah remembers Oliver and thinks he's there to shoot her like he promised. She mentions what really happened during the store robbery, the problem with her check, her daughter's medicine and wound, her 2 jobs, her evictions, and all the other details of her terrible life. Since the teller's phone is still streaming, the video goes viral and people all over the city start feeling bad for her. A crying Raymond shows her understanding by sharing that she grew up in a similar situation and promises to help, but she needs her to come out. This causes Janiyah to go crazy again and she says she won't come out as long as there are cops outside, then she hangs up. Raymond is devastated because this is touching on all her personal issues and she needs to leave the truck for fresh air. When the chief discovers that Janiyah is being recorded, he orders his men to jam the signal. At the same time, Janiyah realizes that the security cameras are on and asks Nicole to take her to the switch. One of the tellers uses the chance to try to leave, but the door is locked. Janiyah turns off all the cameras, leaving the cops with no way of knowing what's happening. Then she goes back and the others tell her they need the bathroom, so Janiyah lets them go one at a time. Outside, Raymond and Grimes are checking the system but can't find the cop who attacked Janiyah. People are starting to gather behind the police because they're asking for Janiyah's freedom. Back in the bank, one of the tellers complains because Janiyah is being treated like a martyr, so Nicole and the old lady scold her for her lack of sympathy. Then Nicole notices that Janiyah is cold and explains the air conditioner is always high there, offering to lend her a jacket. They go to the office and Janiyah puts on the jacket while seeing a family picture on the desk. They discuss the matter of children and Nicole assures Janiyah that she's a good mother, which she knows because she's seen her all the time she's come to the bank. She tries to convince her to get help but Janiyah is still afraid of Oliver. In the evening the FBI arrives and Janiyah gets worried about all the noise. Janiyah sends Nicole to the door to check and they learn the crowd is yelling "Free Janiyah." On the news, they can see the crowd chanting her name with big signs asking for her rights. A reporter talks to the activists and even Benny is there, sharing how Janiyah always helped him even when she had nothing. The chief tries to convince the FBI that they have this under control and Janiyah will surrender peacefully, but they don't listen. Janiyah remembers that Nicole convinced her to open her account there and wonders why she cares so much. In her career, Nicole has seen lots of women getting ignored or scammed by red tape, so she asked to be transferred to this location hoping to make it easier for humble people who need it in this neighborhood. The tellers are complaining about how hot it is without AC and Janiyah shares that this is the temperature she has to sleep through every day. When the old lady says some sweet words, Janiyah apologizes for everything and explains that something in her broke when her daughter was in the hospital. Because she doesn't have insurance, doctors never treated Arya well, not even during her premature birth. She wouldn't mind going to jail if it wasn't for Arya, since she knows foster care won't treat her illness. Nicole promises that she'll take care of Arya so Janiyah can be at peace. At that moment the old lady announces she isn't feeling well and reveals she is diabetic. Janiyah allows Nicole to take her out and apologizes again. As soon as the old lady is rescued by the police, Nicole ignores Raymond's pleas and goes back inside, saying that Janiyah only has her. The next time someone calls the bank, it's the FBI. They won't let her talk to Raymond so she starts losing it again and passes the phone to Nicole. At that moment the science project starts beeping again and Nicole hangs up, thinking that the call is the problem. Janiyah turns off the beeping and mentions the science project, leaving Nicole and the tellers in shock. They explain they thought it was a bomb and Janiyah finally understands why the cops and FBI are acting like this. A teller asks to go to the bathroom and uses her lipstick to write a message on the window. The bomb isn't real and there's only one gun. Janiyah tells Nicole to call the police and clarify the misunderstanding, but Nicole refuses because she thinks the bomb is the only thing keeping the agents from bursting in. Instead she thinks they should all go out without the backpack. Meanwhile Raymond finds the officer who towed Janiyah's car. At first she doesn't share any other details but Raymond gets angry and forces her to confess that Oliver did the threatening. A furious Raymond rushes to Oliver and punches him in the face, which the crowd celebrates. When the chief hears what he did, he takes Oliver away. The phone in the truck is ringing and the FBI refuses to answer it. Both Raymond and the chief are done with their cold attitude so Raymond takes the call. She tells Janiyah that they've arrested Oliver, but Janiyah wants proof. If they text her a picture, she'll go out without the gun or the backpack. However the FBI refuses to wait for the picture and wants to send the men inside. A desperate Raymond runs to the door and gives Janiyah her phone with a picture of Oliver. Janiyah is relieved and lets everyone go, but Nicole stays to help. She takes Janiyah's hand and promises to visit her in jail with Arya. At that moment Janiyah gets a call from her mother, who has been visited by the FBI. Janiyah starts ranting about everything that happened and her mother interrupts her to remind her that Arya is dead. It turns out the girl didn't survive a seizure last night and Janiyah has been hallucinating her presence, the call from the school, and social services taking Arya away. Nicole was told by the police on the phone but didn't say anything not to make it worse. While Janiyah tries to come to terms with this, the FBI breaks through the doors and the skylight to shoot Janiyah down. However this is also a hallucination and Nicole helps her snap out of it. Afterward Nicole guides Janiyah out of the building with their hands up. Raymond is also gentle when she arrests her and Janiyah is taken away in a police car while the crowd continues to show their support. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.